Since birth, Heen-hup has seen red threads on each person. While the neighbor girl Suna only has one thread, her uncle Ji-wook has a bunch. The girl across the street has about 10 threads on her head. Even when watching TV, Heen-hup sees red threads on the actors' heads. Those are threads connecting people who have had relationships with each other. Since she was little, Heen-hup saw those threads, but she didn't understand their meaning. She innocently drew 2 threads connecting her father to her mother and aunt. Her mother saw them and guessed everything. Then she went crazy right after that. Her mother stabbed her father. Heen-hup witnessed the whole thing. She gradually understood what the red threads meant and that they could kill people. From then on, Heen-hup chose to remain silent and withdraw, avoiding contact with humans. The windows were covered with newspapers. Heen-hup hid in the house for many years. She even tried to end her life many times but failed. It seemed like there was some force that kept Hun-hup alive. Hun-hup was 20 years old this year, but she was still completely alone. Hun-hup decided to research who had created those threads, who else could see them besides her, and what their true purpose was. More importantly, Hun-hup wanted to know how to remove the curse. At this time, the neighbor girl stopped by her house and rang the doorbell. It turned out that she had just moved across the street and wanted to get to know her neighbors. Although the neighbor girl was friendly, Heen-hup did not dare to open the door to say hello. After talking for a while and seeing no one answer, she left the fruit and left. Only then did Heen-hup secretly reach out to take the bag of fruit. While eating, she choked back tears. On this side, Ji-wook was the captain of the police department's criminal investigation team. He was late for work this morning, and when Ji-wook parked his car, he scratched the car of his subordinate Yoon-sik. He calmly apologized to his subordinate without explaining anything further. Yoon-sik guessed that Ji-wook had scratched his car again. It turned out that he was late for work today because he was busy taking care of his little niece. A colleague asked him if the girl could only rely on Ji-wook. If he got married, how would his niece live? But marriage was something Ji-wook had never thought about before. It seemed that he only liked free relationships without strings attached. Today, Ji-wook's close colleague announced that she was getting married. Hearing that, he suddenly didn't want to continue with that. She was a bit disappointed because she thought Ji-wook was crazy about sex. Unexpectedly, he also had clear principles and boundaries. At school, Sun-ah was bullied by girls for not paying her money. Even though they knew that Sun-ah's uncle was a police officer, they weren't afraid of anything. They grabbed Sun-ah's head and threw her around. Seeing Sun-ah only sneering contemptuously, Ha-young threatened that if Sun-ah reported to her uncle, they would not let her be, and then Sun-ah would no longer have a life to live. On this side, Sun-ah's uncle was investigating a serious murder case. The victim was a 29-year-old woman who lived alone. She used to be the manager of a nearby coffee shop. The victim's house was very messy and disorderly, but strangely, the furniture was neatly arranged, and the body was clean as if she had been bathed. Seeing that, Ji-wook asked Yoon-sik to thoroughly investigate the victim's relationships. A resident on the first floor said that last night he saw a suspicious man. He wore a helmet and went up to the victim's apartment like a delivery man. The most confusing thing was the motive for the crime. Because the money was still intact, there were no signs of rape, and the victim had no grudges against anyone. She often ordered food, but that night she did not order anything. It was said that the victim had a boyfriend but had broken up for almost a year. As for Heen-hup, when it was dark, she sneaked out to get things from the door. Surprisingly, she saw another bag of fruit. It turned out that the kind neighbor had brought it over to Heen-hup. At that moment, the TV was reporting on a murder that had just happened near this apartment building. This was the 3rd murder in just a few weeks. The victims were all girls living alone in this area. While watching TV, Heen-hup saw a suspicious man wearing a helmet. He appeared at the scene but only had a red thread on his head. She found this man very suspicious. Perhaps he was listening to the situation of the case. Not long after, a man dressed in black and wearing a helmet appeared. He stopped his car and entered the building across the street. The man wearing the helmet went straight to the apartment of the kind neighbor. Heen-hup accidentally saw the whole thing and immediately called the police. She said that the man wearing the helmet was in the house across the street. But at this time, Heen-hup saw the 2 people hugging and kissing very affectionately. After that, the 2 started having sex and a red thread appeared connecting them. The red thread haunted her to the point of going crazy. The next day, Sun-ah was absent from school without permission, making Ha-young angry. She broke the lock of Sun-ah's locker and rummaged through it. They found a new shirt and a love letter. At home, Ji-wook was also curious when he saw that his niece refused to go to school, but Sun-ah only asked him for some money and didn't say anything more. Ji-wook immediately took all the money out of his wallet and gave it to his niece. Only then did he see that Sun-ah's face and hands were covered in bruises as if she had been beaten. She didn't explain anything and just slammed the door. Actually, Ji-wook had a headache with his rebellious niece, and he didn't know what to do. At that moment, Yoon-sik reported that there was an anonymous call from last night. The caller mentioned a suspicious person wearing a helmet at the scene. At this time, colleagues wondered why the informant knew the suspect was a shipper. While the information had not been disclosed, the location of the call was from Wansong apartment building B in that area. That was the area where Ji-wook lived, but it was the building opposite. Coincidentally, he had also noticed noticed that the apartment had windows covered with newspaper, so Ji-wook immediately went there to ask and investigate further. Hun-hope looked through the peephole and was startled. It was the first time she saw someone with so many red threads on their head. Ji-wook kept knocking on the door, but no one would open or answer. At that time, a neighbor came downstairs and told him that the girl never went out. Someone even had to take out the trash for Hyun-hope. Ji-wook did not give up, but continued to patiently persuade her. Finally, Hyun-hope opened the door and admitted that she had reported it to the police. But then she said that she had seen it wrongly. The man in the helmet entered apartment 204, which was the apartment of the girl who had just moved in, and that apartment was right next to Ji-wook's house. It seemed like they were a couple who were dating or close. As soon as Hun-hope finished speaking, he slammed the door shut so he couldn't ask any more questions. Ji-wook had no choice but to leave, but she was still wondering how she knew he lived there. That night, the mysterious man in the helmet entered Hyun-hope's building. When she looked through the peephole, she saw him leaning closer to look at her house. At the same time, Sun-ah was bored and wandering the streets alone. She was worried about how she would deal with the female bullies tomorrow. At that moment, Sun-ah saw a woman withdrawing money from a nearby ATM. She suddenly had a reckless idea, and then Sun-ah secretly followed the woman into a small, deserted alley. But just as Sun-ah was about to snatch the woman's bag, 3 men passed by. The opportunity was gone, so Sun-ah had to give up. Then she came across 3 partygoers huddled together smoking e-cigarettes. At the police station, Yoon-sik told Ji-wook that the victim's ex-boyfriend was Jung-min. He was a high school teacher and lived in apartment 303, building B, Wansong apartment complex. The previous victim had gone to the gym with Jung-min many times. Looking at his photo, Ji-wook remembers that he was Hyun-hope's upstairs neighbor. Such coincidences could not be ignored. At this time, he received a phone call. Ji-wook told Yoon-sik to go to Jung-min's apartment first, and he would stop by a place and come later. Soon after, Ji-wook was at the hospital because they reported that his father was missing. Ji-wook rushed to the rooftop and saw his father standing on the railing. He seemed to want to jump down, while Ji-wook just stood there, tears in his eyes. Ji-wook did not intervene, but let the nurse pull his father back to safety. Meanwhile, Yoon-sik went to apartment 303 and rang the bell many times. When no one answered, he opened the door himself and cautiously walked inside. Yoon-sik discovered a room with a ceiling and walls painted red like blood. He was about to call Ji-wook, but before he could say anything, he was attacked. Jung-min used a stick to hit Yoon-sik repeatedly, making him unable to react. Although he fought back fiercely, he was still knocked down in the end. Ji-wook was worried because the call was disconnected, so he immediately accelerated at full throttle. Jung-min put on a helmet and tied Yoon-sik to a chair. Then he went to the opposite building. Hun-hope looked through the window and saw a familiar helmet-wearing man. She was about to call the police when she discovered that her phone had run out of battery. Hun-hope realized that this was not the man from the day before, because he only had a red thread connecting him to the girl in room 204 in the opposite building. She didn't have time to charge her phone, so Hun-hope decided to take a knife to save the girl. The problem was that she had been isolated for a long time, and now stepping out of the house was a huge challenge for Hyun-hope. She held the knife and walked like a zombie, shaking, scaring the neighbors. Hyun-hope staggered, dropped his glasses, and fell to the ground. At the same time, the girl in apartment 204 happily opened the door to welcome the man in the helmet. But then she realized something was very unusual. He was not the person she was waiting for, but Jung-min. The girl asked why he was here. Jung-min just smiled at the red thread on her head. He said this was the path to salvation for everyone, and then proceeded to strangle the girl. At that moment, Hyun-hope appeared in time, with a knife in his hand. But Jung-min was not afraid. He even approached her. While Hun-hope was trembling and did not dare to do anything, he went forward to grab the knife and coldly stabbed her in the stomach. At this time, Ji-wook had arrived in front of the building on the other side, and he picked up Hun-hope's sunglasses. On this side, after dealing with Hun-hope, Jung-min turned to kill the girl, but she woke up and struggled with Jung-min, causing his glasses to fall off. Jung-min hurriedly looked for the glasses to see the red thread and continued to beat the girl. Meanwhile, Ji-wook went upstairs and saw Hun-hope's door wide open. He curiously went in and saw her research notes about the red thread. When Ji-wook looked out the window, he saw Jung-min assaulting the girl in the apartment opposite. Ji-wook quickly removed the newspapers to open the window. On the other side, Jung-min was frantically strangling the girl. At this time, Hyun-hope had regained consciousness. She suppressed the pain and picked up the knife. Hyun-hope crawled little by little towards Jung-min and stabbed him in the leg. Jung-min screamed in pain and pulled out the knife to kill Hyun-hope. Luckily, at this moment, Ji-wook appeared in time to shoot and kill him. While he was dying, Jung-min smiled and said that the threads were disappearing. The other girl was taken to the emergency room. Hyun-hope did not seem to be too seriously injured because she had ended her life many times before. Ji-wook returns the sunglasses glasses to Hyun-hoop. What made her remember the murderer's dying words was that the thread was disappearing. Maybe he also saw the S-line like Hyun-hoop. Was it because of the glasses? She asked Ji-wook who the dead person was, but he said that when Hyun-hoop went to the police station to give a statement, it would be clear. At this time, Sun-ah had just returned home. The two girls looked at each other hesitantly, as if they knew each other. When they got home, Ji-wook went into her room to ask about school. However, Sun-ah didn't want to confide in him. She said that there was no point in telling him. Anyway, Ji-wook would disappear again. He never cared about her, so why would he act like he was lecturing her? When Ji-wook was about to leave, Sun-ah said that Hyun-hoop used to be her middle school classmate. When she was young, Hyun-hoop's mother killed her father and ran away. Meanwhile, Hyun-hoop realized for the first time that the red S-line threads she saw could also save people. Perhaps this would be a turning point in Hyun-hoop's life. At this moment, she received a text message from an anonymous number. The sender said that he could also see the world that Hyun-hoop saw and told her to go to Bonju High School. After this incident, Hyun-hoop decided to live a more positive life. She removed all the cardboard from the windows to let the sunlight in. Then Hyun-hoop cleaned up the house to make it brighter. The next morning, Sun-ah went to school and saw Ha-young scribbling on the board to mock her. Not only that, she also held a love letter that a guy had sent her. Ha-young read it out loud so that the whole class could laugh at her. Sun-ah went crazy and rushed in to get the letter back. As a result, she did not get the letter and was even beaten by Ha-young. Luckily, at this time, the homeroom teacher, Gyu-jin, appeared and dragged Ha-young out. She tore the letter in front of the whole class. After that, Gyu-jin called Sun-ah to meet privately. She advised that violence could not solve the problem. But Sun-ah didn't want to listen and insisted on going home. When she was about to leave, she suddenly saw a pair of glasses in her closet. Meanwhile, Ji-wook was still confused about the case related to Jung-min. He couldn't understand why he killed someone. Yoon-sik said that Jung-min was probably crazy. He was jealous of his ex-girlfriend, but the two had broken up a long time ago, so why did Jung-min kill someone now? Ji-wook noticed the detail that the victim said he kept talking about salvation, but Jung-min didn't follow any religion. So what was salvation? Ji-wook returned to his apartment to investigate further. The room had red walls and was painted tightly. He discovered that underneath was not paint, but crisscrossed red threads. They stretched upwards like a spiderweb covering the entire ceiling. When Sun-ah got home, she put on her glasses and saw a red thread floating above her head. However, she still did not understand the meaning of this thread. At this time, Ji-wook came home with his hair covered in red threads. Sun-ah was shocked and screamed, then quickly changed her clothes and ran out. She wanted to see what other people were like. Hyun-hoop accidentally caught Sun-ah looking up at the sky, and she began to suspect. When she saw the red threads connecting the couples, Sun-ah quickly understood everything. Thanks to those special glasses, she could see secret relationships that only the person in question knew. Who was cheating on who, or who was two-timing were all clearly visible. The entire city sky turned a bright red color. The next morning, Ji-wook asked to take Sun-ah to school, but she felt disgusted when she saw the red threads tangled on his head. Today, Sun-ah was very confident when she went to school because she knew the secrets of everyone around her. Who was a virgin, or who was having sex everywhere. Sun-ah knew everything. The homeroom teacher Ju-jin didn't have any strings. It turned out that she was still single. At this time, Sun-ah saw Ha-young with 2 strings on her head, one of which was connected to the teacher's room. She was curious and went in to see, but it turned out that the other end was connected to the literature teacher. What a surprise. When she entered the classroom, Miss Ju-jin introduced a new classmate to the class. It was Hyun-hoop. She wasn't used to interacting with other people, so she couldn't say a word to introduce herself. Hyun-hoop just sat quietly at the empty desk at the back of the classroom. At the police station, Ji-wook was still investigating Jung-min's case. Looking at the photo, he was wearing glasses, but no glasses were found in the evidence. He immediately went to the high school where Jung-min used to teach to find out. That was also the school where Sun-ah and Hyun-hoop were studying. Miss Ju-jin thought Ji-wook came to ask about Sun-ah's situation, but he said he came to investigate a murder case. Only then did Ju-jin know that his old colleague Jung-min was a serial killer. When Ji-wook asked about the glasses, she said she had never seen him wearing glasses. At the same time, Ha-young bullied Sun-ah on the rooftop, but today she did not give up and dared to confront Ha-young. Sun-ah said she did not have money for Ha-young, so Ha-young should not touch her. As a result, Sun-ah was kicked to the ground by her. At this time, Hyun-hoop suddenly appeared and stopped Ha-young. She was angry and grabbed Hyun-hoop's neck. Unexpectedly, Hyun-hoop dragged Ha-young to the railing and threatened to fall with her. Ha-young was scared and promised not to touch Hyun-hoop and Sun-ah again. Hearing that, Hyun-hoop let go of Ha-young. Unexpectedly, Sun-ah did not thank her, but blamed her for meddling in other people's business. She told Hyun-hoop not to interfere in her business anymore. Even though she said that, Sun-ah did not hate her at all. That night, Ji-wook went to Jungmin's favorite bar to investigate. The bartender said he usually comes alone to drink quietly and then leave, but recently, Jungmin often talks to himself, as if he is counting numbers. One time he even got into a fight with another customer. Jungmin pointed at the other customer's head and counted, then he laughed. As a result, the other man got angry and hit Jungmin. The bartender also said he was wearing glasses glasses, not like in the picture. Ji-wook was about to leave when a girl who was drinking alone noticed him, so she immediately dragged Ji-wook to a nearby hotel. Even though he didn't want to, he had already followed her, so he continued. On the other side, Sun-ah secretly followed Ha-young. She discovered that Ha-young was on a date with her literature teacher. Sun-ah immediately took a few pictures as evidence before the two of them dragged each other into the hotel. A moment later, Ha-young received a text message with the picture Sun-ah had just taken, yet she still pretended like nothing happened and continued having fun with the teacher. Ha-young also texted Sun-ah that she was still a minor. Even if the literature teacher was punished, Ha-young would be fine. But this sentence woke Sun-ah up. The person who should be threatening was the teacher, not her. The next day, several teachers were sitting around talking about teachers having relationships with students. The literature teacher was startled and worried. But at this time, he received an anonymous text message. It was a picture of the literature teacher stroking Ha-young's cheek, along with a message asking him to prepare 20 million in cash. It turned out that Sun-ah intended to use that money as a deposit to buy a house of her own. She wanted to move out and live alone because her uncle didn't care about her at all. Hyun-hup didn't even know if her mother was alive or dead. She always felt extremely lonely in this life. She just wanted to have a real family like any other normal family. The next day, the literature teacher pretended to scold Ha-young about her studies and asked her to stay to talk. In fact, he wanted to ask if anyone had threatened or known any secrets about the two of them. Ha-young immediately said that Sun-ah had done it. She also didn't know why Sun-ah knew about it. The literature teacher got mad and scolded Ha-young, but she argued back. However, Ha-young also noticed that Sun-ah had been acting strangely recently. She had become more confident and cheerful than usual when she came to class. It turned out that Sun-ah had not only blackmailed the literature teacher, but also threatened other teachers. Anyone who had an illicit relationship became her target. Not only that, thanks to SLINE, Sun-ah had won the boyfriend of a female student. This person was in the group that had bullied her. Even Hyun-hope realized that Sun-ah had changed a lot. While washing her hands next to her, Hyun-hope saw a pair of glasses that looked very familiar. She asked Sun-ah directly if she had seen something through those glasses. Of course, Sun-ah didn't admit it, but when she heard about the red thread, she was startled. She asked how many red threads she had on her head, and Hyun-hope immediately answered that it was one. Then she told everyone in the school in detail how many threads they had, who this person had sex with, and what kind of overlapping relationships. Hyun-hope knew very well. Only then did Sun-ah believe that she could see what she saw. Sun-ah said that someone had left her glasses in her locker the day before. Hyun-hope guessed something and began to feel worried. She warned that the glasses could lead to a life-threatening disaster. However, Sun-ah didn't believe it, and she still fought for the glasses back. That night, Sun-ah went to a coffee shop with her new boyfriend, Ji-won. When she was at her peak, she received a text message from her literature teacher. He said he had prepared 20 million and would meet her on the school rooftop at 12 o'clock. Leaving the coffee shop, Sun-ah invited Ji-won to take a photo together. The two of them had no idea that Ha-young was secretly watching their every move. It turned out that when Sun-ah and Hyun-hup were talking about the glasses in the bathroom, she had overheard them. Seeing Sun-ah engrossed in taking photos and not paying attention to her bag, Ha-young quietly picked it up and took the glasses inside. After returning home, Sun-ah discovered that the glasses had disappeared. She quickly went back to look for them, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Ha-young put on her glasses and saw mysterious red threads. Before she could be happy, she was ambushed by someone and passed out on the spot. Sun-ah called Hyun-hope to scold her for taking the glasses, but Hyun-hope had no idea what was going on. It was almost 12 o'clock, so Sun-ah said she would go to school first and hung up. When she went to the rooftop, the literature teacher had been waiting for her for a long time. He didn't pay and begged Sun-ah to let him go because the teacher's salary was too low. She coldly refused because the literature teacher had turned a blind eye when he saw a group of people bullying her. During the argument, he received a text message from his wife asking for her guilt. It turned out that someone had sent a photo of the literature teacher and Ha-young to the wife. Without needing to hear an explanation, he believed that Sun-ah was the culprit. At that moment, Hyun-hup rushed to the schoolyard to stop her, but it was too late. She only had time to see Sun-ah fall from the rooftop, but it seemed that she was not dead yet because the red thread on her head was not gone. Hyun-hope immediately called an ambulance to take Sun-ah to the emergency room. Due to her critical condition, she was taken to the operating room. As soon as Ji-wook heard the news, he rushed to the hospital. He was so worried about Sun-ah that he cried. Ji-wook then asked Hyun-hope why she came to school at this hour. She said she came to find Sun-ah because she called Hyun-hope and said she would come to school. Hyun-hope didn't know why, because she was sure Sun-ah wouldn't ended her life. The next day, the literature teacher didn't come to school and no one answered his phone. The principal suddenly went crazy, scolding all the teachers. The principal blamed the teachers for not knowing how to teach students, causing them to act without thinking. Hearing that, the physics teacher argued back, causing the other teachers to rush in to stop her. Hyun-hope went went to class and saw that the students were still laughing and joking as usual. Only Ha-young and Sun-ah were absent. In the teacher's room, Mr. Kim was rumored to be getting married. Another teacher teased him when he would send the invitation, but he said he had no intention of getting married. After that, Miss Kim packed his suitcase and went to his sister's house to stay. For some reason, the two hadn't seen each other for many years, so the niece didn't know who he was. Luckily, Mr. Kim prepared a stuffed rabbit as a gift to get to know each other. Actually, he only planned to stay for a week. After that, Mr. Kim would go to Canada to start a new life. He just felt a little awkward having to live with his strange brother-in-law. After the surgery, Sun-ah was out of danger, but she was still in a coma. Ji-wook just wished his niece could stand up and scold him like every day. Hyun-hup was still haunted by what happened that day, so she went to the rooftop to look for clues. Unexpectedly, someone else was also curious about Sun-ah's case, and that was Gyum from the next class. She claimed to understand Sun-ah very well, because Sun-ah was a strong person and could not end her own life. Moreover, Ha-young bullied Sun-ah every day and was absent from school at this time, which was clearly suspicious. Jung investigated like a detective, but Hyun-hup didn't care. She just wondered who took the glasses. The glasses were on Mr. Kim's desk. He asked Ju-jin, but she said she didn't know. Ju-jin said that if no one claimed them, he should try them on because they seemed to suit Mr. Kim very well. Hearing that, he tried it on, but unexpectedly, Teacher Kim saw red threads on other people's heads. At this moment, Ji-wook with a head full of red threads walked in, scaring Teacher Kim to death. It turned out that he came to ask Ju-jin about Ha-young's whereabouts. When he knew that she was missing, Ji-wook asked about the male student who took a photo with Sun-ah, so Ji-won was called in for questioning. Unexpectedly, he said he had no relationship with Sun-ah because she had asked Ji-won to go out first. He found it interesting that Sun-ah, who had been bullied before, had suddenly changed completely. Ji-won continued. In the cafe, the two talked and kissed. He wanted to go further, but Sun-ah stopped him. After that, they took a photo and left, but she ran away, as if she had lost something. Right after that, Ji-wook checked the camera where the photo was taken, and discovered a girl secretly took Sun-ah's bag. That was Ha-young. Ji-wook continued to track her down. From the Ha-young photo studio, he went to the subway, then to the park, and disappeared. On the other side, Mr. Kim saw a red thread on his sister's head connected to his brother-in-law's head, but his brother-in-law was the opposite. Of course, he now understood what these threads meant. His brother-in-law suddenly asked about Mr. Kim's love life. His brother-in-law heard that Mr. Kim was about to get married, but why did they break up? His sister heard that and immediately stopped her husband, but he still insisted on asking. Seeing that, Mr. Kim had to tell the story that he had lived with his girlfriend before getting married. One day, Mr. Kim came home early and caught her and her lover in bed. His brother-in-law comforted Mr. Kim that it was good to know about it before getting married. His sister's face turned pale, and she drank continuously when talking about the affair. After eating, he wanted to smoke, so he invited Miss Kim to go with him. When he got into the elevator, he saw the thread on his brother-in-law's head connected to the elevator next door, so he had a relationship with someone in the same building. After sitting and talking for a while, the two of them went up again. The brother-in-law suddenly pressed the wrong floor, then he quickly changed it to the 10th floor. Teacher Kim also guessed something. When the brother-in-law was not paying attention, he secretly pressed the 4th floor. When the elevator opened, Teacher Kim saw the red thread on his head connecting to an apartment on this floor. Meanwhile, Ji-wook was furious because the department head wanted to conclude that Sun-ah's case was a suicide. He ordered Ji-wook to stop investigating because the school board really hated this. The department head tried to calm Ji-wook down and said that he understood Ji-wook's feelings, but the department head advised him to close his eyes and let it go. Ji-wook immediately objected. If the person lying there was the department head's child, would he be able to do that? On this side, Teacher Kim went to school and was complimented by Miss Gyu-jin that he looked more handsome with glasses on. Meanwhile, the literature teacher still had no news. He discovered that 2 other teachers were having an affair. Teacher Kim immediately asked Ju-jin what she would do if she knew that an acquaintance was having an affair. Gyu-jin said that she would tell him everything and see what would happen. The next day, Teacher Kim and his sister returned home and saw a package delivered to their door. The address was correct, but the recipient's name was Chae-rin. Hearing that his sister said that person lived in apartment 401, Teacher Kim immediately grabbed it to return it to the person. Actually, he had already guessed what was going on. Teacher Kim left the package in front of apartment 401 and stood in a corner to observe. A moment later, Chae-rin came back with a bunch of branded goods in her hand. It seemed like she was talking to her lover on the phone. Chae-rin saw the package and calmly took it into the house. Teacher Kim searched the mailbox of his sister's apartment and found that in addition to the letters addressed to her brother-in-law, there was also a letter addressed to Chae-rin. Today is the anniversary of Mr. Kim's mother's death. His brother-in-law is away on a business trip and will probably be back in 2 or 3 days. Mr. Kim and his sister sat down to talk about family matters, but when it came to his father, he seemed unhappy. It turned out that their father had an affair and caused his mother so much pain that she passed away. Since then, Mr. Kim has been very sensitive to these matters. When he discovered that his girlfriend had an affair, she cried bitterly and apologized to Mr. Kim. After all, they had lived together together for 6 years, and he intended to forgive her. But every time he saw his girlfriend, Mr. Kim remembered his father, the person he hated the most in the world. Even though he still loved her very much, Mr. Kim could no longer see his girlfriend. The next day, the photo of the literature teacher and Ha-young was leaked online by someone. The teachers were all surprised. They could not imagine that their colleague would do such a thing. Hyun-hope's classmates laughed with satisfaction. They were delighted that their teacher and friend were involved in a scandal. That same day, the police discovered the literature teacher's body in his car, along with a suicide note. In it, he confessed to his improper relationship with Ha-young and apologized to his family. The literature teacher could not handle the humiliation of this being revealed, so he decided to end his life. According to initial estimates, the literature teacher had been dead for at least 3 days. Ji-wook immediately pointed out something suspicious. If he had died in the car in the parking lot, it would not have been discovered after 3 days. Perhaps the literature teacher had died somewhere else, but the photo had just been released online today, which meant he knew it would be revealed. There must be someone behind this. After school, Jung invited the class president to eat with her and Hun-ho. He usually refused, but today he suddenly agreed. Jung was suspicious, so she asked if the class president had any feelings for Hun-ho. He just smiled and said nothing. The class president made Jung even more worried. When the three of them went out, Ji-wook was already waiting. He told Hyun-hoop to get in the car. Jung angrily shouted, saying that Ji-wook dared to kidnap someone in broad daylight. Jung even threatened to call the police. Unexpectedly, Ji-wook immediately took out his police badge to show them. Finally, Hyun-hoop agreed to get in the car with him. It turned out that Ji-wook wanted to ask her about Sunna, specifically why Sunna came to school that night. However, Hyun-hoop did not answer right away, but turned to ask about Sunna's glasses. She said that when Ji-wook found those glasses, Hyun-hoop would tell her everything. Meanwhile, teacher Kim accidentally saw his brother-in-law on the street, so he did not go on a business trip as he had told his wife. He quickly took a taxi to follow. It turned out that tonight, the brother-in-law had a date with his mistress Chae-rin at a fancy restaurant, and he generously gave her an expensive necklace. Teacher Kim witnessed everything, so he immediately picked up the phone and called his brother-in-law. Teacher Kim asked him a series of questions, forcing him to struggle to find a way to deal with it. At that moment, he passed by their table, and Teacher Kim saw the hotel room number they booked for that night. He went to room 2407, and Teacher Kim was annoyed when he saw the red threads tangled between the rooms, while his brother-in-law was waiting for Chae-rin to take a shower. There was suddenly a loud knocking on the door outside. Teacher Kim was waiting and immediately grabbed him by the neck. Even though he was discovered, the brother-in-law still did not apologize, and he had the nerve to say that this matter would not be beneficial to his sister. Seeing that Teacher Kim was about to barge into the room, the brother-in-law quickly stopped him and promised to settle things once and for all. Teacher Kim immediately warned him once more and then left. The next day, Teacher Kim prepared to leave for Canada. Before parting, his sister gave him some money, but Mr. Kim was still worried when he knew that his brother-in-law had not returned and had not contacted him. Then he went to school to pack his things. Mr. Kim curiously scrolled through Chae-rin's Instagram. He saw that she was still posting new pictures happily as usual. Chae-rin also showed off the necklace that her brother-in-law gave her, but there was one thing that made Kim go crazy. When he saw her showing off her ultrasound picture and publicly announcing that she was about to have a baby, Mr. Kim called his sister, but no one answered. Because he was worried, he rushed home. When he got home, he saw a crowd gathering in front of the door. His sister was sitting in the car. She kept crashing into another car. Miss Kim panicked and rushed over. He tried to comfort her and said that he would take care of everything. However, his sister only repeated one sentence: "Why did you do that?" Just then, his brother-in-law returned. Instead of caring about his wife, he ran to comfort Chae-rin. Unable to bear it anymore, Mr. Kim got mad. He rushed over and punched his brother-in-law. Teacher Kim shouted, "Are you still human?" At this time, the older sister spoke up to stop the other two people from running away. Then she confessed that the man was not her older sister's husband. His name was Tae-seok, the husband of that woman. Because he was afraid that she would hit his pregnant wife, Tae-seok rushed back. She was the third person in the relationship with that man. It turned out that everyone misunderstood. Teacher Kim mistakenly thought that his older sister was being cuckolded by her husband, while Tae-seok thought that he wanted to settle things with her. The older sister was furious and wanted to hit Chae-rin to death. Teacher Kim was both in pain and humiliated. The most pitiful thing was that his niece did not know what would happen to her from now on. Meanwhile, Ji-wook kept reading the literature teacher's suicide note over and over again. He wondered who would write such a careless suicide note. Suddenly, remembering the incident with his niece, Ji-wook panicked and rushed home to see if Sunna had left any letters. After searching everywhere, he only found a notebook. At this time, Hyun-hoop was on her way home. She passed by the motel and saw a receptionist recruitment notice. Hyun-hoop took out her phone to take a picture to contact her later. When she just got home, she saw Ji-wook waiting for her. He took out a notebook in which he drew glasses and red threads on a person's head. Ji-wook asked if these were the glasses Hyun-hoop had mentioned and what would she see when she put them on. After hearing Hyun-hoop tell her everything about the red threads and the glasses, Ji-wook still found it hard hard to believe. Hyun-ho thought that someone had taken Sun-a's glasses, then called her up to the rooftop and pushed her down. Hyun-ho didn't know who that person was. It seems that Sun-a used the sight of the S-line to threaten many people, and there must be many enemies. Ji-wook begins to suspect that there is more than one pair of glasses, because there have been many strange cases recently. He asks if the whole world in Hyun-ho's eyes is red. Ji-wook understands why she likes to wear sunglasses. He guesses that Hyun-ho's life must be miserable, but sometimes, seeing the S-line is a blessing. Hyun-ho visits Sun-a in the hospital, and she suddenly sees that the red thread on Sun-a's head has disappeared. There are also no signs of life. At this moment, Hyun-ho suddenly wakes up, and it turns out that it was just a nightmare. Kyung and the class president are very worried when they see Hyun-ho's constant restlessness. They immediately invite her to go out to relieve stress on the weekend, but Hyun-ho refuses because she is busy with her part-time job. When Jung asks what she does, she hesitates, then mentions the school staff. Mi-sung. Meanwhile, Mi-sung is being scolded by a teacher because of the documents. There was not a single red thread on her head. A lonely person is so difficult. It turned out that Mi-sung also had special glasses and saw the S-line. She was upset about her desk and relieved her stress by continuously pressing the stapler. For Mi-sung, this teaching job was just temporary. Her real dream was to become an actress. Mi-sung liked the handsome music teacher, but did not dare to confess. It turned out that she was not an ordinary person either. Mi-sung had a very strange hobby of wearing colorful dresses and pink wigs to rent a room at a motel alone. Coincidentally, this was also the motel where Hyun-ho was working as a receptionist. Sun-a's case has not progressed. Currently, the most reasonable hypothesis is that the literature teacher pushed her down, then he felt remorse and ended his life. The literature teacher's last phone signal was also at school, but according to the family, he had a severe fear of heights, so it was impossible for a literature teacher to push someone from the railing. Another possibility is that Hae-young pushed Sun-a and ran away. She is now missing. Hae-young has no trace of using the card or phone. The only thing Ji-wook is sure of is that Sun-a did not jump down by herself. Something is wrong. Her niece has changed since wearing those glasses. The next day, Hyun-ho was at work when two friends unexpectedly visited. Kyung even asked to go up to the room to check. In the end, the three of them crowded into the tiny reception room. A moment later, a pink-haired girl came to book room 206. Kyung found her very familiar but couldn't figure out who she was. It turned out to be teacher Mi-sung. As soon as she entered the room, she happily rolled onto the bed, and Mi-sung started mumbling to herself with strange words. She said that she had had sex with many men, but ever since that person appeared, relationships with strangers could no longer fill Mi-sung's heart. She confessed that she was afraid that she would never be able to have him. Kyung recognized the pink-haired girl as the school staff. Hyun-ho noticed that she only had one S-line on her head. Mi-sung returned to her shabby house, took off her pink hair, and put on her glasses. Mi-sung looked at the world through the window, a world filled with red threads. Meanwhile, Ji-wook learned about Hyun-ho's background. He knew that her mother killed her father and ran away. Hyun-ho witnessed the crime when she was 5 years old, then drew it with lines to imagine. At that time, people suspected that Hyun-ho had a mental illness. Ji-wook asked Hyun-ho if Sun-a had an S-line on her head. Seeing that she didn't want to answer, he guessed that she probably did. Ji-wook then continued to ask if the red thread was connected to the head of a classmate. Hyun-ho said she didn't know who the red string was connected to, but it wasn't a classmate. Ji-wook suspected that the person with the red string connected to Sun-a pushed her, although it was just a possibility. When Hyun-ho got home, she watched TV and saw the news about a random murder. The perpetrator was caught right after the crime, but he claimed that he was now innocent and kept smiling contentedly. What caught Hyun-ho's attention was that the perpetrator was wearing glasses. She suddenly remembered what Ji-wook had said, that there could be many pairs of glasses. The school staff member, Mi-sung, deliberately went into the music room, where her crush was listening to music alone to relax. She was surprised that the teacher knew her name. He also guessed Mi-sung's dream of becoming an actress, which made her even happier. It felt like the teacher was her soulmate and destiny. In the mirror, each person only has one red string, but Mi-sung imagined that the string connected the two of them. After school, the class president invited Hyun-ho to a special place, the swimming pool of the swimming team. At that time, there was no one there. He knew that she liked deserted places, so he invited her here. Hyun-ho didn't know how to swim, but she jumped into the pool. The clear blue water without a trace of red made her feel so peaceful and comfortable. Hyun-ho didn't even want to come up from the water. The class president was afraid that she would drown, so he jumped in, but it turned out that Hyun-ho was fine. She even felt especially happy today. After getting out of the water, he gallantly put a coat on Hyun-ho, and they both ate noodles. The class president curiously asked what happened. Hyun-ho hesitated for a moment before telling her that since she was born, she had seen red threads on other people's heads. He was surprised and asked if she had any. Hyun-ho said no. Then she added that neither the class president nor Kyung had red threads, although she still didn't understand the meaning of what Hyun-ho said. The class president still believed her. Hyun-ho Hope asked if she was strange. He said that she was not normal but very cool. That night, Hope kept looking at the jacket, remembering the class president's warm actions. Then Hope imagined that there would be a red thread on her head. Meanwhile, this woman didn't know what crime she committed that made her arrested. When she saw Ji-wook, she happily greeted her. It turned out that the woman kept calling him, but Ji-wook didn't pick up. Even though there were many red threads on his head, he still had his own principles, which was that Ji-wook was hanging out with criminals. Last time, she was just a suspect, so it was acceptable. Yoon-sik wondered why Ji-wook hadn't been dating anyone lately. He replied that he was curious about someone. Ji-wook emphasized that it was just curiosity, not the desire to take that person to bed. It turns out that the person who caught his attention was teacher Ju Jin. The next day, Mi-sung went to the motel again and booked the familiar room 206. Hope went to clean the room and accidentally heard Mi-sung mumbling to herself. It was the same sentence as the day before, that she had sex with many men. Maybe that was the line Mi-sung was practicing, because it was clear that she only had a single thread on her head. It turned out that Mi-sung suffered from paranoia. She was afraid that the noise she made would be heard by everyone. For example, Mi-sung's laughter when looking at the teacher. Mi-sung discovered that this place was an old motel, not a single person in the room during the day. In this room, Mi-sung felt completely free. Then one day, she saw a pair of glasses on the table. Mi-sung herself looked perfect through those glasses. Later, she also discovered a hole in the wall, which allowed Mi-sung to see couples in the room next door having sex. For her, this room was her own perfect world. Today, she looked through the hole in the wall as usual. Mi-sung was startled when she saw the music teacher she had a crush on in the next room. Mi-sung happily watched every move of her dream lover until a girl appeared, making her dizzy. It was a famous actress who seemed to be his ex-girlfriend. The two of them started to be intimate with each other in all kinds of positions, not knowing that someone in the other room was going crazy because their love fantasy was broken. After the fun ended, the actress made an appointment for the music teacher to come here at the same time tomorrow. The next day, Mi-sung came to book room 206 again, but today, she didn't wear a wig and makeup like usual. Mi-sung surprised Hope a bit. She went to get a fire extinguisher and poured sleeping pills into a water bottle. It seemed like she had some plan. As soon as the actress appeared, Mi-sung took a fire extinguisher and knocked her unconscious. Then she dragged the actress into the room. Mi-sung stripped off all her clothes and put them on herself. She even put on makeup and curled her hair to look like the actress. After finishing, she calmly entered room 205, where the music teacher was waiting. But unfortunately, he immediately recognized her as Mi-sung, not his ex-girlfriend. The music teacher frowned and asked Mi-sung what she was doing here. She immediately pressed herself against him. Then Mi-sung said the lines she had practiced countless times. She said that she had had sex with many men, but since the music teacher appeared, Mi-sung's sex with strangers could no longer fill her empty heart. Mi-sung confessed that she was very afraid that she would never be able to have him. But life is not like a dream. The music teacher pushed her away and tried to leave. Mi-sung got mad and threw a stapler at his head. In an instant, the music teacher collapsed unconscious. She happily hugged and kissed her dream lover. Mi-sung thought he had fainted from the anesthesia. Unexpectedly, red blood began to flow from the back of the music teacher's head. Only then did she panic and cry. But Mi-sung realized that the thread on his head had not disappeared yet. She climbed on top of the music teacher and jumped up and down wildly. The other man suddenly woke up and tried to push Mi-sung away, but she continued until the thread on the music teacher's head completely disappeared. After that, Mi-sung soaked herself in the bathtub. She used a stapler to bleed herself and ended her life. At this time, the actress began to regain consciousness. She rushed out of room 206 to call for help. The actress said that some crazy woman had beaten her and stolen her clothes. When Hope ran into room 205, it was too late. The music teacher died a very unjust death. The murderer, Mi-sung, also died in the bathtub, but no pair of glasses could be found at school. Hope said that both of them only had one S-line, but it was not connected. Neither she nor Ji-wook could understand why Mi-sung did these things, but Hope guessed that it was related to the glasses she was wearing. Every time she went to the motel, Mi-sung was completely different from when she was at school. Perhaps after wearing the glasses, she felt like she had become a special person. After all, those glasses were extremely dangerous. Those who had worn them all had bad endings. Ji-wook was determined to find the person behind it all, the one who caused Sunhae to lose almost half her life. He returned to room 205 and opened the plug in the bathtub. Water and blood from the drain revealed a pair of glasses lying at the bottom. Ji-wook picked them up and put them on. Only then did he see the red threads growing in clusters on his own head. Ji-wook unconsciously touched his head but felt nothing. When he arrived at the police station, he was shocked when he counted the red threads on his colleagues' heads. A couple who had secretly known each other for some time. Yoon-sik also had 2 threads on his head. Ji-wook asked Yoon-sik, and he said that he had only known one girlfriend before getting married. At that moment, a female student from Bonju High School walked in to report something. Ji-wook noticed that there were 4 red threads on her head. Suddenly, an idea came to him. Ji-wook forced the male student who dated Sunha to go to the hospital room for a checkup. As a result, the thread on her head did not connect to his head? Ji-wook asked further, and he revealed that Sun-ah once said that she hated someone so much that she wanted to kill that person. But who that person was, he did not know. Hyun-hope's birthday was coming up, so Jung wanted to celebrate her birthday. The class president made an appointment to meet her before that and only met the two of them alone. At that moment, a strange number texted and invited Hyun-hope to a birthday party. Also, on November 1st, it was the mysterious person who texted her that I also saw the world that you see. Hyun-hope wondered who this person was and what his intentions were. The next day, Hyun-hope noticed Jin-na, a classmate with 4 red threads on her head. That was the girl who went to the police station to report yesterday. At this time, Yoon-sik also asked Ji-wook to investigate this case. It turned out that Jin-na came to report that she was sexually assaulted. A week ago, Jin-na went to a classmate's house to drink. The two of them used to be K-pop trainees together, so they were very close. After drinking, Jin-na passed out for a while, but when she woke up, she found that her underwear was on backwards. Jin-na also insisted that she had never had sex. Ji-wook knew that was a lie, but he couldn't expose it. The next day, the two of them went to school to find the male student. The kids were in high school, but had red threads on their heads, and some even had a few. Ji-wook was shocked to see that because he was very good in high school. At that moment, the two of them accidentally met Ju-jin. Ji-wook was surprised to see that she didn't have a single red thread. She recognized his new glasses and complimented that they looked good on him. Hearing that, Ji-wook felt a little embarrassed and blushed. When they met a male student named Han-ju, Ji-wook saw that he only had a red thread on his head. Han-ju seemed very arrogant and insisted that he didn't have sex with Jin-na. He didn't even want to do it. Ji-wook had just finished questioning Han-ju when he happened to meet Hyun-hope. Hyun-hope knew something was up when she saw the glasses, so Hyun-hope asked Ji-wook to hand them over. But he said they were evidence of the case and couldn't be given to her. Hyun-hope couldn't rest assured because these glasses were too dangerous. They would completely change the wearer. While the two were arguing, Ju-jin caught them, so Hyun-hope had no choice but to leave in frustration. Ji-wook took the opportunity to ask Ju-jin to eat with him and then asked for permission to leave. Ju-jin silently looked at the huge red line on Ji-wook's head and smiled incomprehensibly. Not long after, Ji-wook and Yoon-sik went to the entertainment company that had accepted Jin-na and Han-ju as trainees. There, the director said that he was the one who advised Jin-na to quit because she wasn't talented enough and didn't work hard enough. Jin-na also often invited the male trainees to hang out and drink. Yoon-sik complained that this case was too much of a headache and they didn't know who to believe. Since both of them were minors, they couldn't interrogate them. Yoon-sik joked that it would be great if there was a lie detector. Yoon-sik said that, but he didn't know that Ji-wook had glasses that could detect lies. The next day, the two continued to take statements. Han-ju said that Jin-na was the one who was always following him. She took the initiative to come to his house to play, and he even had the text messages as evidence. Meanwhile, Jin-na deleted the text messages and washed the clothes she wore that day. Then a week later, she reported it, so this was very suspicious. Ji-wook deliberately opened the door to observe and discovered that the only thread on Han-ju's head was not connected to Jin-na, so he asked her one last time. After that, Ji-wook told Yoon-sik to drop the case. When Ji-wook came home that night, Hyun-hope was waiting for him. She borrowed his glasses to try on. The result was no different than when Hyun-hope didn't wear glasses. He confessed that he had seen the case file about her parents. Ji-wook comforted him that it wasn't Hyun-hope's fault. Although these glasses were dangerous, he believed that they could help someone. Just like Hyun-hope had saved the life of the girl in the apartment building across the street, Ji-wook revealed that these glasses had helped him discover that Jin-na had framed Han-ju, so he dropped the case. But Hyun-hope said that Jin-na might have been telling the truth, because just a week ago, Hyun-hope had seen that there wasn't a single hair on Jin-na's head. Luckily, Yoon-sik hadn't finished his report yet, so 2 policemen went to Han-ju's house to investigate. They called for a long time before he opened the door, so the house was extremely neat and clean. But not long after, Han-ju used the excuse that he had to go out early tomorrow morning to chase the two away. Meanwhile, Hyun-hope went to the motel that was closed after the murder. She didn't know that a long-haired girl was secretly following her. It turned out that Hyun-hope suspected that someone had intentionally placed the glasses at the crime scene, so she decided to come back here to look for clues. Suddenly, a figure appeared, startling her. It turned out to be the class president. He happened to see her coming in here, so he curiously followed her. Seeing that the class president was timid, Hyun-hope teased him that there was something on his head. Then the class president panicked and hugged her. The atmosphere suddenly became more awkward. The class president closed his eyes, waiting for Hyun-hope's kiss. Seeing that, she almost burst out laughing. At this moment, Hyun-hope imagined a string connecting her and him. Finally, the two had their sweet first kiss. At this time, Ji-wook and Yoon-sik were searching through a pile of donated old things under Han-ju's apartment. They discovered a bedsheet the same color as his blanket and pillow. It turned out that when Ji-wook entered Han-ju's house, he observed that the bedsheet was a different color from the pillow and blanket. It did not match the interior at all. Han-ju had thrown away a perfectly good sheet. It was obvious that Han-ju wanted to hide something. The next day, he was called in for questioning. Han-ju remained calm and explained that the bedsheet was dirty, so he threw it away. The blood stains on it could have been from Jin-na's nosebleed or her period. When Ji-wook asked asked more about that day. Hanju said that he gave Jinna whiskey. She drank a whole bottle but still wanted more and did not want to leave, so Hanju went out to buy more beer. After drinking the beer, she collapsed. The two checked the convenience store's camera and saw that he had actually gone to buy beer. Ji-wook suspected that while Hanju was out, someone had sneaked in and done something lewd to Jin-na. At that moment, Ji-wook happened to see 4 young men leaving the apartment building around that time, and they had entered an hour ago. Ji-wook immediately counted the number of red threads on their heads. It was true that after leaving the apartment building, each of them had an extra red thread. One of them, who had no red thread at all, had one more. There was no doubt that they had found the culprit. The next day, Hyun Hope also discovered 4 red threads on Jin-na's head connected to 4 of her schoolmates. She immediately took out her phone to call Ji-wook, but at that moment he appeared. The other 4 were immediately taken in for questioning, but they still refused to confess. Ji-wook observed that the one with one thread was the most nervous, so Ji-wook immediately said, "Get in the car and I'll take you home." On the way, he became even more nervous when he realized that Ji-wook didn't take him home but went in the opposite direction. The two of them stopped right in front of Hanju's apartment building, got out of the car, and left the other guy alone. Yoon-sik was worried because the detention period was about to end. They had no reason to keep them any longer, but Ji-wook calmly told him to keep a straight face. In just 10 minutes, the boy would collapse. A few minutes later, Yoon-sik dragged him out to take a look at the scene, but the boy panicked and ran away. But he hadn't run long before Yoon-sik caught him. Ji-wook handcuffed him to the car and threatened that out of the 4, he was the most suspicious. The boy cried for a while before deciding to confess. He and the other 3 did do it, but the mastermind was Hanju. They all knew that Hanju had been interested in Jin-na for a long time. That day, the other guys asked Hanju how much she would pay them to sleep with her. When they arrived, Jin-na was unconscious because Hanju tricked her into taking sleeping pills. At this point, the other 3 had no choice but to confess. Everyone said that Hanju was the mastermind and that he even sat there watching from beginning to end. Ji-wook found the sleeping pills in the fire extinguisher at Hanju's house, but he still stubbornly refused to admit his guilt. Because Hanju claimed that he did not directly rape Jin-na, but now Ji-wook has evidence and 4 witnesses to convict Hanju in court. That's all he can do. Ji-wook said that he wished the judge could wear these glasses to see the truth clearly, but Hyun-hyu thought that those glasses wouldn't help people see the whole truth. Hyun-ho even joked that she wished she had as many red threads as Ji-wook. Hearing that, Ji-wook didn't know if Hyun-ho was praising or mocking him. Just then, the nursing home called. Ji-wook had no choice but to tell Hyun-ho to get out of the car and leave immediately. She took out her phone and called the class president to pick her up. It turned out that Ji-wook's father had disappeared. This time he did not go to the rooftop like last time, but the surveillance camera showed a girl coming to take him to the car. Ji-wook was shocked when he realized that person was teacher Ju-jin. She even deliberately looked up so that the camera could clearly see her face. At this moment, a strange number sent a picture of Sun-ah on the hospital bed. Ji-wook panicked and drove to the hospital and rushed into Sun-ah's room. When he saw that the girl was still safe, he felt more relieved. But at this moment, Ji-wook discovered that the thread on Sun-ah's head was moving and connecting to the outside of the door. He immediately pulled out his gun as a precaution, and the door slowly opened. The person who entered was his father. Ji-wook was surprised and did not understand how his father could come here. But now, Ji-wook saw the horrifying truth. Ji-wook could not believe his eyes. He did not expect that the only thread on Sun-ah's head was connected directly to his father's head. Ji-wook went crazy and pushed his father to the floor and was about to attack his father. Luckily, Ji-wook still had a bit of reason to stop, but this truth was too painful and it was beyond his endurance. Ji-wook kept blaming his father. He didn't understand why his father did that to Sun-ah. At this time, in another place, Hyun-hope's hands were covered in blood. Hyun-hope sobbed and called Ji-wook on the phone. Hyun-hope needed him to help her right now. At the same time, a girl working at a coffee shop received a text message from an unknown number. When she opened it, she was shocked. It was a secretly filmed clip of her and her boyfriend being intimate. It was clear that she had been followed and filmed at some point. After the lecture, the atmosphere around her suddenly changed. Everyone's eyes were on her. Every whisper behind her back made her feel like she was about to suffocate. When the girl sat down, her best friend texted her, asking if that clip was hers. That night, her phone kept receiving text messages from the person who had released the clip. He threatened her to answer the phone, and even if the girl reported it to the police, the clip would not disappear. From that day on, she was always in a state of mental breakdown. The girl looked at the cars driving on the street and only had one foolish thought in her mind. The girl walked forward without thinking, but at that moment, someone pulled her from behind. It was her homeroom teacher, Ju-jin. When Ju-jin finished buying coffee, she took out a pair of glasses and said that she had found them nearby, so they might be hers. Even though the girl said they were not hers, Ju-jin Jin still left the glasses and left. Hun Hup had previously arranged to meet class president at the bus stop. He ran over as soon as he saw the message. He even wished Hun Hup a happy birthday early, even though it was the day tomorrow. She hesitated for a long time and then suggested that the class president go to a motel with her. When he heard this, he blushed and was so embarrassed that he didn't know how to react. Hyun Hope mustered up her courage to confess that if she could be close to someone, she only wanted him to be her. The class president asked her if she liked him. Hyun Hope immediately nodded. Then she took out condom she had prepared, making him laugh. Then he gently kissed her, and they did it for the first time. Right after that, a red thread appeared above their heads, connecting the two of them. The first time they did it, Hyun Hope had a very strange feeling. It made her feel like she was stepping into another world. The guy couldn't hide his joy. His eyes were always on her. Then the two of them held hands and walked under the streetlights. He wanted to ask her to go eat something, but she was worried that the last bus was almost gone, so he ran to buy her food. She stood there and watched him. Hun Hoop's eyes were filled with him. When he was gone, she turned back to look at the glass window on the side of the road, while playing with the red thread on her head. Just then, a loud noise was heard and someone screamed from afar. Hun Hoop was startled and ran towards the crowd. In front of her was the class president, lying in a pool of blood, and next to him was a birthday cake. His body was pierced by some construction iron bars that fell from somewhere. Hun Hoop fell to the ground and she started sobbing. She had always thought she was a cursed child, someone who would leave her if anyone loved her. Her parents had also left like that. Hun Hoop thought no one could truly love her until she met the class president. He was the only person who made her believe that she could change. But unexpectedly, the class president left without warning. Hun Hoop had not yet recovered from the shock of losing the class president when she received a strange message. The content was short and included a video of Jong being tied up. She looked extremely panicked, as if someone was threatening her. Hun Hoop was confused and didn't know what to do, but called the police. Ji Wook was shocked to know who the owner of the thread on his niece's head was. Ji Wook asked Hun Hoop if she knew who it was. She said if she knew, she would have told him. At this time, Hun Hoop told him a story he had never told anyone. Every year on her birthday, she received a greeting card. At first, Hun Hoop thought her mother had sent it secretly, but then she realized that someone was waiting for her to grow up, waiting for the day Hyun Hoop would truly become a woman. Yesterday, her birthday hadn't come yet, but she had chosen that day for herself. Hyun Hoop gave Ji Wook a text message from an unknown number asking to meet. After reading it, Ji Wook immediately guessed that the person who called Hun Hoop and the person who sent the glasses to him and Suna were the same person. There was a mysterious person pulling the strings in the dark. Ji Wook's mind flashed through the surveillance video at the hospital. The person who appeared in it was teacher Ju Jin. Everything seemed to be connected, but strangely, when Ji Wook investigated the background, there was no one named Ju Jin. Hyun Hope's homeroom teacher seemed to never exist on paper. As soon as Hun Hope's arrived at school, she immediately noticed a classroom with the lights on. Hyun Hope immediately rushed inside, while Ji Wook followed closely behind. But when he entered the same room, he saw nothing. It was just an empty room with no one in sight. Meanwhile, Hyun Hoop saw Gyeong tied up in the middle of the room. Jung stuttered that it was Hyun Hoop who texted her to come here. After that, she couldn't remember anything. Hun Hoop panicked, untied her, and dragged Jung out into the hallway to find Ji Wook. But strangely, the three of them were in the same hallway but couldn't see each other. Hyun Hoop and Jung ran down the stairs, but the stairs got longer. Every time they turned, they thought they were on the lower floor. But when they looked up, the scene was still the same as before. The two felt as if they were trapped in the school. Meanwhile, Ji Wook ran up the stairs and rushed straight to the rooftop. Hyun Hoop and Jung heard the noise and immediately ran upstairs. The rooftop was deserted. At this time, Ji Wook was lost in an extremely strange space. The ground here had been turned upside down into the sky. There was a group of people dressed in white gathered as if they were holding some kind of cult ritual, and the one who would perform it was the girl working at a coffee shop. It turned out that after she put on the glasses and saw the S-line, Jujin came back and suggested that she kill people to remove the threads on her head. Soon, everyone would be able to see the S-line without glasses. At that time, the threads on her head would become a weak point that others would take advantage of. So from then on, this girl went on to kill everyone who had had sex with her. The threads on her head decreased from 4 to 3 and then disappeared. Today she would cleanse herself of her last sin. She screamed that when the world turned red, they would all be reborn. The boy in front of her panicked and begged for mercy, but she still brutally attacked. Ji Wook witnessed everything, but he still couldn't believe his eyes. At this time, Hyun Hoop also confessed to Jeong that she had seen strange things since birth. Unexpectedly, Jeong was also wearing glasses, and she also saw the S-line. She revealed that the head teacher said that when they died, they could see the S-line without glasses. Only then did Hyun Hoop know for sure that Ju Jin was the one behind everything. In that strange space, Ju Jin appeared and had many red threads on her head. Ji Wook had much less red threads than her. Suddenly, Ju Jin turned her eyes to Ji Wook, causing everyone to turn around to look. She removed the white cloth to reveal that the next person to be purified was Ji Wook's father. Ji Wook panicked and rushed to untie his father. Unexpectedly, Ju Jin gave Ji Wook a knife to kill his father. That was the only way to save Suna. If the whole world saw the thread connecting her and her grandfather, she would definitely not be able to live. live. Ji-wook trembled as he raised the knife but decided at the right moment not to stab his father but to stab Ju-jin. Unexpectedly, she had extraordinary strength. She easily blocked and threw him away. Then Ju-jin coldly stabbed Ji-wook's father straight in the neck, causing him to quickly die from blood loss. Only then did Ji-wook pull out his gun, but she wasn't afraid at all. In this space, Ju-jin seemed inviolable. Normal people couldn't kill her. Then she lifted him up by the neck and admitted that she was the one who pushed Sun-ah from the rooftop. Because if Sun-ah wasn't in the hospital, Ji-wook wouldn't have paid attention. She had set everything up for him to discover the terrible truth. Meanwhile, Hin-hupper was being strangled from behind by Jung. Luckily, Hin-ho snatched the glasses and threw them to the ground, causing Jung to let go. Hin-ho quickly kicked the glasses and broke them. At this moment, Jung seemed to suddenly wake up and did not understand what had just happened. But something was very strange. Jung discovered that Hin-ho's eyes had turned green. Drops of blood from the wound on her face automatically separated and slowly flew up to the sky. Inside those drops of blood were countless red threads. In just a short time, Hin-ho suddenly found herself in a strange space with a group of people dressed in white. At this time, Ju-jin threw Ji-wook away and turned to Hin-ho. Ju-jin revealed that Hin-ho was born with the ability to see red threads for today. She was not cursed, but a gift and a blessing. People are very curious and everyone wants to see the S-line. Hin-ho's existence represents that desire. At this moment, the people in white simultaneously crushed the glasses and surrounded the two. In Hin-ho's despair, Ju-jin took out a knife and coldly slashed down. Unexpectedly, a person rushed out to block the attack for her and then collapsed. It was Hin-ho's mother. She had gone missing many years ago. She tearfully apologized to Hin-ho for coming too late. She confessed that she had the glasses. She had seen with her own eyes the red thread connecting her husband and sister. So, it wasn't Hin-ho's fault. She struggled to speak and then took her last breath. Hin-ho painfully rushed towards Ju-jin and was stabbed in the stomach. The drops of blood from the wound did not flow down but flew up into the sky. Ju-jin also controlled Hin-ho to fly up. The blood in her body suddenly spurted out and turned into countless red threads. They gathered at one point and quickly woven into a giant red thread. Ju-jin's voice rang out once more. Hun-hop's death will bring the eyes of the gods to humanity and blessings will be bestowed. As the last drops of blood flew up, Hun-hop slowly fell down. Ju-jin finished the ritual, causing the thread to glow brightly and then unravel. Just as Ju-jin was feeling happy, Hun-hop got up and stabbed her. But Ju-jin said that it was too late now because they had both completed their mission. After saying that, she collapsed. When the leader was gone, the others ran around in panic. Ji-wook was wondering what was happening when someone bumped into him and dropped his glasses. In a split second, the two of them were back on the school rooftop. Jung was waiting for them there. Ji-wook picked up the glasses on the edge of the railing and almost jumped down. Luckily, Hyun-ha pulled him back in time and reminded Ji-wook to go visit Sun-ah so he could calm down. At this time, the sky was a bright red. The strange phenomenon made everyone rush out to see and take pictures. Hyun-ha was also looking at the red sky. Suddenly, a bunch of threads connected to Ji-wook's head. At the same time, threads also appeared on everyone's heads, making everyone bewildered and surprised. They didn't know what this was and why it grew on their heads. The world was now a bright red color, making Hyun-ha remember what Ju-jin had said. One day, the world that she saw, everyone would see. A world where everyone could see the S-line. Hyun-ha finally became a normal person like she always wanted. A year had passed, and terrible chaos had shaken the world. Everyone tried to find out why the S-line appeared, but no one had found an answer. Now, most people who go out are wearing masks. Sun-ah finally woke up. In a world full of red threads, she was reborn without a single thread. Ji-wook and Sun-ah did not talk to each other about past. They only felt relieved that the other was still alive. But now Sun-ah is very shy every time she goes out with her uncle, because the number of red threads on Ji-wook's head makes everyone look at them. Hyun-ha falls into loneliness. She often visits the cemetery to visit the class president and even brings him a warm coat when winter comes. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls her name. Hyun-ha looks around in panic and thinks she is hallucinating. But what she did not expect was that the person calling her was Gyu-jin. The drama ends here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you again.